MILFs, e-girls, stepbrothers, and furries. The internet in 2023 is absolutely packed with free porn. But porn hasn't always been free, so what exactly changed to make it so ubiquitous today? And equally importantly, what other consequences followed those changes?
Cause it's W in this bitch.
Despite the moral panic that follows porn everywhere, it functions just like any other entertainment sector, meaning major industry shifts get motivated by money. Around the turn of the millennium, technological innovations made it way easier to afford video gear or access the internet, which lowered access barriers for a whole lot of people to create their own independent media. But indie pornographers still needed to get their goods in front of an audience. And prior to 2006, managing a porn website still required some pretty significant resources and technical skills. That is, until a new distribution model suddenly emerged, making it incredibly easy for these creators to host their content and connect with wide audiences. The biggest names in porn today exemplify this shift. These aren't simply websites, they're platforms. And profit on platforms is mostly happening behind the scenes. Money doesn't only flow through traditional sales or subscriptions, but largely now relies on data. The owner of a platform is typically not the producer of the bulk of content you see on that site. It helps to think of platforms as media brokers rather than broadcasters. Just like on YouTube, Meta, or Twitter, porn platforms leave the content creation up to the users. So rather than producing original media, these powerful technology companies are focusing on optimizing their digital infrastructures to attract more users, connecting them to entertainment, services, and each other. As the users interact in this digital ecosystem, they're creating a wellspring of valuable data points, ripe for the taking. Every single click, like, upload, and share from the audiences, creators, advertisers, and other parties in the space is monitored and cataloged. Once it's captured, the data gets processed for targeted advertising, software development, or sold in bulk to ad firms and data brokerages. But don't panic. These companies aren't particularly concerned with tracking your personal, individual porn tastes. Instead, platforms are size queens. To classify the browsing behaviors or predict what audiences will pay for, size and scale are key. Hence, big data. Luckily, for this model, users tend to favor bigger, more popular, and more recognizable sites, so our attention tends to concentrate on the leading services, intensifying a winner-takes-all monopoly dynamic. In porn, one clear market leader is PornHub. The site has become synonymous with internet pornography generally, thanks to their clever PR strategies, a string of controversies, and of course, effectively bottomless free porn. Like all platforms, PornHub relies on that popularity principle. It requires extremely high volumes of traffic to succeed. In 2022, they had 130 million users daily, ranking them higher than Netflix, Reddit, or Twitter. Because platforms tend towards these market monopolies, giants like PornHub have massive influence over industry production standards. This isn't unique to porn either. We see this effect with social media, on search engines, and with rideshare giants. A clear leader dominates a market, meaning audiences become accustomed to content or services tailored to suit that business model. That demand ripples out and influences production across the entire industry, so that other services are incentivized to mimic the leader's format. The type of content that makes money online gets determined by the winning platform's content management system, what it rewards, promotes, or encourages, as well as what it disincentivizes or outright forbids. All platforms prioritize scale, encouraging a clickbait logic that rewards attention-grabbing content. To thrive on PornHub, videos have to capture the audience's interest quickly, in that split second it takes to scroll past a thumbnail. Algorithmic recommendation systems will catalog, curate, and promote videos with the most provocative titles, tags, or visual cues that echo already popular themes. Content that amplifies those qualities is way more likely to be featured on the main page or to appear first in a search. This competition for attention has a whole range of consequences for artistic production. Outside-of-the-box experimentation with styles or formats rarely gets rewarded. Your average PornHub users spend less than 2 minutes per video before moving on to the next one. So you're not likely to see a feature-length narrative art film being promoted on the main page. Instead, creators have to abide by prevailing formats and tailor to those standards, or they risk obscurity. This results in some familiar porn tropes. Step-siblings in a variety of improbable scenarios. Hypersexualized racial stereotypes. Teen gets applied to everything. Performers are incentivized to exaggerate their reactions, to push themselves to their physical limits, and to title and tag their content to match with the most intense themes and categories. Basically, both the audiences and the creators are navigating a media feedback loop that rewards provocation. But it's important to note that this is not unique to porn. It's the same effect that amplifies hateful rhetoric on Twitter, encourages public health misinformation all across Facebook, and promotes white supremacist creators on YouTube. This is a very common media model, but our cultural anxieties over sex mean that we tend to project too much meaning on those effects when it comes to porn. We don't exactly bemoan the downfall of society with every bad BuzzFeed listicle or the next bland pop album promoted on Spotify, but in porn, this race to the bottom media market effect gets mistakenly treated like our real desires or our sexual preferences. And while clickbait can theoretically reflect our deepest desires, in most cases it relies on sheer absurdity to trigger that click. By targeting users en masse, algorithmically curated porn operates a lot like those clickbait headlines. And let's be real, we aren't lusting after stepbrothers out here, any more than our lives have been changed by one weird trick. Still, content recommendation systems like PornHub's have become algorithmic tastemakers. So rather than neutrally observing porn viewing trends, platforms like PornHub amplify and actively construct our media consumption habits. But not only does the free streaming model of today shape the type of porn we're all consuming, it's also become a flashpoint for larger cultural debates. Porn? A legal and regulated industry. We've democratically determined making porn to be a legal occupation, with established regulations around intellectual property, record-keeping arrangements, and other occupational liabilities. And yet, in recent years, conservative lobby groups have aggressively campaigned to conflate this legal industry with human trafficking and sexual abuse. These anti-porn campaigners consider the entire industry an abomination, condescendingly claiming that no one can ever consent to sex work, and they're attempting to brand porn's very existence as a serious public health crisis. Anti-pornography claims are repeatedly debunked by global anti-trafficking organizations, and researchers have identified these efforts to be a political Trojan horse, intended to roll back LGBTQ2S+ protections and to muzzle sexual expression at large. These are organizations that very recently lobbied to boycott Monty Python and Madonna, to fight the recognition of gay marriage in the States, and have protested actively against Disney normalizing LGBTQ lifestyles by depicting them. Now, they've simply rebranded as anti-porn focused initiatives. Many marginalized workers, including trans folk and people with disabilities, rely on porn to make an effective living when their options are limited elsewhere. It's no coincidence that these sexually regressive lobby groups are attacking an industry whose workers are disproportionately women and sexual minorities. Unfortunately, these porn abolition groups are backed by massive American evangelical populist movements, meaning they have plenty of money to promote their sexually repressive projects. The moral panics that they've stoked around porn mean that anti-sex policies have grown increasingly common at both the state and corporate levels. We've seen laws like 2018's FOSTA-SESTA dismantle Backpage and ruin Tumblr and make life much more dangerous for sex workers. Social media practices of routine deplatforming or shadow banning sex workers are hitting marginalized users the hardest. Finally, financial discrimination from banks and credit cards has trapped many workers in a cycle of precarity.
Porn workers face all kinds of financial discrimination, having their bank accounts closed, being denied the right to use payment products like Venmo and PayPal, and losing access to online services like Airbnb and GoFundMe. Credit card companies like Mastercard are some of the worst offenders, holding porn companies to vague double standards. They claim their special adult content clauses are designed to protect internet users by limiting the sale of harmful content, but they actually discriminate against legal work. When porn workers can't make money off their safely produced content, they suffer intense financial stress. bad health outcomes. They become reliant on more dangerous work and vulnerable to more exploitative circumstances. But it's not only the porn creators who are suffering at the hands of these sex-phobic policies.
Age verification technologies are being pitched as the next big solution to protect young people online from sexual content, and they're being pitched by governments around the world. And they follow the same kind of pattern of other knee-jerk legislation like FOSTA-SESTA, where the solution to the problem is presented as the policy, rather than studying the issue and then making policy. In the case of age verification initiatives, it takes the legitimate concern of young people's access to sexual content online and weaponizes it to promote really invasive surveillance technologies. By essentially tracking the adult media consumption of all internet users and associating everyone's sexual content viewing habits with our government-issued photo ID, you can see that these measures are pretty dystopian. Many of these age verification measures also end up creating registries of adult performers and consumers that are easily accessible by law enforcement. In some cases, the private companies that provide these services are already partnering with law enforcement and border agencies. It's the same old story, really. Like white, straight, thin, patriarchally approved sexuality goes largely unpunished, whereas less commodifiable sexual expression becomes highly vulnerable online. Pairing all of this with anti-LGBTQ and anti-choice legislation, it's plain to see that these age verification policies will stifle access to information, dismantle online communities, censor queer and gender nonconforming users, silence sex workers, and basically bar everyone from accessing comprehensive sexual health education on the internet. And especially if you're not cis heteronormative or don't fit in the dominant cultural narrative.
Sexuality, whether for procreation, love, play, connection, self-discovery, or expression, it's a huge part of our collective social experience, and it's pretty alarming that sex, rather than white supremacy, misogyny, racism, or many other more pressing social concerns, is being so effectively suppressed and siloed away from our online social spaces. Because of common and widespread sex censorship, porn has actually become one of the last refuges for sexual expression on the internet. And this may seem obvious, but when the only sexual communication allowed online is highly commodified, we have a problem. While these sites represent a very important counterpoint to whorephobia and sexual censorship, we can't forget what makes them tick. Free porn is shaped by a logic of maximizing traffic for profit. These are private companies, and we don't expect other companies to behave in the most ethical ways voluntarily. We regulate them, sensibly, by setting fact-based policies. So why should porn be any different? Platforms all struggle with the complexities of balancing free speech with content moderation. Porn is no exception, and this sector deserves data-informed, fair regulation. So next time you hear a panicky claim about the evils of pornography, consider the facts. Hopefully this video has shed some light on why there's so much free porn out there, along with detailing some side effects of that model and addressing the misinformation that's fueling attacks on the industry. Porn is complicated and fascinating as a media sector, and we've barely scratched the surface in this video. But I'll close with one suggestion. If you care about freedom of sexual expression, consider supporting one of these essential organizations that are fighting against online censorship on the front lines. Stay informed. Stay horny. When people share, don't you know that porn promotes incest? And I'm like, well, yeah, it promotes incest about as seriously as BuzzFeed promotes, WebMD or whatever. It's a media effect where there's certain trends. And it's not like porn has more intense real-world implications than any other media model. Don't feel guilty. You like to wank it? Your masculinity is not stored in the balls.